It's been 2 years that there was a major political upheaval in India's most strategic partner and South Asian neighbor, Bangladesh. A political upheaval that led to the ouster of a major political force that had commanded widespread respect among the people of Bangladesh for a very long time. And there was the entry of Muhammad Yunus, a Nobel laureate, which many geopolitical commentators have said did not really behave like one. His actions been questioned by many geopolitical commentators and several of the own Bangladeshi class, but although in a subtle manner. However, 2 years down the line, almost, there have been processions seeking the return of the biggest political force of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, at a time when the Bangladeshi people have chosen for themselves a new government led by Tariq Rahman, son of another former Prime Minister, Khaleda Zia. The difference being that that election was sans the Awami League, which had commanded the respect of the Bangladeshis for a very long time. So what is the future of the Awami League? And do we see a return of the Awami League members, several of them forced to stay in exile, several of them targeted, to Bangladesh soon? To discuss and answer this question, I have with me somebody who has had seen everything as a first-hand account, Moibul Hasan Chaudhry, the former Education Minister of Bangladesh. And we'll ask him, how does he see a return happening and when? So, thank you for speaking to India Abroad. This has been a very challenging phase for Awami League, a phase where several of your members have been targeted, several of the people, top leadership, forced into exile. Do we see a return and when?
Thank you for coming over today and giving me this time. We just wanted to sort of express that Awami League was never out of the scene. Through an illegal amendment of the terrorism law, they have prohibited us, our activities, and this current government has finalized it in the parliament.
Okay.
But it's just a mere legal instrument. Legally, you can ban someone, but in terms of our presence, in terms of our organization, in terms of our activism, everything is on. Everything is on in Bangladesh and beyond. So the administration, they do realize that, but what we feel is that the force which brought them to power are not allowing them to realize the situation as it stands, and they're continuing this ban. So it's just a paper ban. If tomorrow our leader, former Prime Minister Bangabandhu's daughter Sheikh Hasina, if she decides tomorrow that there will be a procession towards Dhaka to oust this government, we can do it within 24 hours. But the thing that we have to consider is whether we want another upheaval in the country, whether we want more chaos and civil war-like situation, which ideally we do not want. Which is why we are also showing restraint. The government has come into power just 110, 20 days back. So we are assessing the situation. We are being tolerant, but we are also being vocal and expressing ourselves.
Right. So, over the past 2 years, there have been much mayhem in Bangladesh. And in fact, much of it happened under Mr. Muhammad Yunus, happens to be a Nobel laureate. But there had been several changes during that particular regime. The repercussions of it are still being visible, and possibly they'll be visible for a very long time to come. A new government is in power now, led by the BNP. There have been several decisions taken by the previous government which haven't been overturned. For example, the growing proximity between Bangladesh and Pakistan. How do you see that? We now have seen that trainee bureaucrats from Bangladesh who used to study at the LBSNA in India, in Dehradun, they are now going to Lahore and they've had training in Pakistan. How do you view that situation for the country's bureaucracy? And also to add that around 500 scholarships are now being given to Bangladeshi students So that's Pakistan's work on the Bangladeshi young psyche as well. How do you see these developments?
See, Pakistan was instrumental in the ouster of our government with certain backing from some other countries. I don't want to name them here, of course. But Pakistan was instrumental. Their resources were active during the 5th August, the uprising. Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed has publicly claimed that they had sent their cadres to train elements within the Bangladeshi extremists, and they succeeded, right? So Pakistan's role was widely recognized, acknowledged, and even thanked by the then Yunus regime. The current government is so far is continuing that policy.
Okay.
It's not just that the civil servants have been sent. Bangladesh and Pakistan have signed this agreement, bilateral agreement, where Pakistani officials, Pakistani passport holders can come to Bangladesh without any visa. But the same privilege has not been extended to Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So who are coming into Bangladesh and who are going there? We are still we're still in the dark on it, about this thing. And the civil servant issue you mentioned, civil servants from Bangladesh, they're career-minded people. They've had education, they've set competitive exams. They do not want to go to Pakistan. A lot of them are in touch with us. And once you go to Pakistan, spend some time there, globally, you become a pariah. Once a stamp of Pakistani immigration is put on your passport, your passport technically becomes something which is always seen with suspicion. So no one wants to go there. So they're being forced to go there. In this equation, the recent addition is Turkey. So the Turkish, the current leader Erdogan, he has this vision of utopia, the Sultanate or the revival of the Ottoman empire and so on. This kind of utopian dream he has. In that, we hear certain Middle Eastern countries are also financing, investing. So this Pakistan, Turkey, and some Gulf nations, this, let's say, quad or triad or whatever you call it, Bangladesh has become part of it, unfortunately. It is not good for the country's long-term security interest. It is not good for the country's internal law and order, because we don't know who are coming from. Pakistan is not a country which is known to be a stable democracy. Since its birth until today, not a single civilian government could complete its tenure
in Pakistan.
So we do not want that kind of a situation. Yunus, in fact, wanted to restructure the constitutional arrangement of Bangladesh in order to reflect the Pakistani structure, the upper house and so on and so forth. I mean, exactly like how they have, with a lot of power in the president's hand, so that he can dissolve the parliament whenever he wishes to and so on. So those things are stuck, but the elements which were supported by Pakistan are active, at least vocal. They're demanding that the so-called July Charter must be upheld, must be implemented, because if you implement the July Charter, you have another Pakistan. So, except for the name, technically it becomes East Pakistan again.
Right.
We hope that the current government, because they were in government for a long time in Bangladesh, I mean, for most of our existence, these lot of politicians were in power, not Awami League, by the way, because they were in Jatiyo Party, which was a military-backed political party during General Ershad's time. Then they were in General Zia's time. Then there's Begum Zia, and so for most of Bangladesh's existence, Awami League was not in power.
Yeah.
These elements were in power, and a substantial time period of it was led by BNP and their allies. So we hope that they will realize that globally there is a danger that Bangladesh will become a pariah state and will be seen as a national security threat, not just by the regional countries, India, or Nepal, or Myanmar, but by the global north.
Right.
And we have a big diaspora, because they will think that if the mother country becomes a terror exporting heaven, if it becomes the Mecca of of all these extremists, the inspirational land, then there is definitely a consequence for their citizens who are of Bengali origin, and they can be radicalized and they can become a security threat for their own country's security. So this realization is coming even amongst those who have backed the Yunus regime.
So one really important question that crops up from our conversation is about the role of the BNP led by Tariq Rahman. Now, it has been just over 100 days or so. It is still too early to judge this government, but they have been, like you rightly said, initial days over the
It's a
initial
morning show of
phase,
the day.
right. The honeymoon period of the government. We can say that there hasn't been a major reversal of the trend that was being seen under Muhammad Yunus.
Absolutely not.
Do you have any expectations of a revival? Second thing is that recently, one of the major leaders has commented that Awami League leaders are free to contest the local elections as independents. Now, this is a major. This can be looked at either ways. It can be looked at on the positive side as an attempt to revive the party as well, if that happens. And on the other hand, this can also be a major reason to identify who are the Awami League supporters still
and
on
entrap
ground
them.
and entrap them. How do you see this phenomena?
Starting with your second question, thousands of our leaders and activists are behind the bars. They're in jail.
Right.
And are kept there without any trial for the last 2 years. With leaders in jail, and a few who were able to escape abroad, and majority of the leaders not in public focus, how can you really go for an election? You have to first allow the activists of Awami League to be out of the jail.
Right.
So if they do not allow the court system to function properly with basic respect for rule of law, right to bail, and so on and so forth, they will be left in the jail, and they will not be able to contest the election. First, that right has to be given to them. So our demand is just, we have only 3 demands. Release our political prisoners so that they can take part in regular social life. Political life comes after social integration, right? So politics is thereafter, right? These are political activists.
Right.
So that is there. That's the number 1 demand. Second is lifting of our prohibition. And third is stopping this kangaroo court called the International Crimes Tribunal, where Sheikh Hasina has been given death penalty. And not just her, many of our colleagues. And even, in fact, I'm also charged there. Any day, they'll just declare that I should be hanged to death, till death. This is something that they're just giving willy-nilly, and death sentence itself has lost its value in the public eye. So these 3 demands are from us, and if these demands are met, then we can think of election, right? Going back to the first question. Awami League has always existed in the country's, socioeconomic system. It's not that easy to erase it. It's not just the history. It's not just the followers. The values of Awami League are enshrined in the constitution. It's in society. It's in our economy. It's everywhere. So no matter how much they try to erase us, they know that we're not like Jamaat Islami now. It seems like a very organized, a party with some kind of support. It's not a mass party like BNP or Awami League. The presence that they have in the parliament itself is fake. Itself is because of the absence of Awami League, and of course there were allegations of vote stuffing and ballot stuffing and so on. So in no way you can say that a government will be able to complete its tenure without the Awami League's political presence. And if they continue to deny us our rights, there will come a point where we won't be able to hold our activists from reacting, from going out there and demanding an ouster of the current regime.
Here, if I may just interrupt you, it is an important point because there are a lot of activists still supporting the Awami League, and we'd seen that during the elections, unfortunately, your offices were shut down. They were repainted by the Jamaat, members, or even possibly the BNP
Taken
activists.
over, basically.
And
yes.
yeah, I mean, they were all desolated, they were destructed, they were, a lot of things had been happening there. Of course, your members were jailed, and several of them, unfortunately, also joined other political parties. Now, in that kind of a scenario, how do you see, the revival of the party? Number one. Number two, how do you see this flip by your supporters? Do you think that it is completely under pressure that they're forced to do just to survive, because possibly their survival is also under threat? And do you think that possibly in times to come, if there is a chance, they will again rally behind the flag of Awami League?
See, in Bangladesh, the culture of switching parties usually does not exist.
Okay.
Amongst the followers and activists at the grassroots level, a small percentage for their survival may switch vote for an independent candidate first. I mean, that's how the psychology goes. If I don't like my party's candidate, I will go for an independent one. But switching onto something like Jamaat Islami or BNP is almost like a sin for Awami Leaguers. Yes, over the years, there were people who came from different backgrounds and not aligned with our ideological stance, and they will switch, right? So they were there as Gupto, the secret leaguers, right? The secret infiltrators, and there are not many of them, right? So I say, good riddance.
Okay.
If they have switched, right?
But don't you think for some of them, they might be your genuine supporters and they were, forced to do this, take this kind of a step?
Genuine Awami Leaguers take the party almost as if it's a religious call.
Okay.
And that is our experience. We grew up in the Awami League's culture, we have rituals, we have days. Awami League is not just an average regular mass political party. It is a very regimented political party. It has its things all set and done, right? So those who are Awami League activists, they are firm in their belief that after my theological commitment to God or my religion, it is the party. Right? This is how the party works, which is why they are going after this party with this much craze. You see, so they know this. Awami League is not just an average regular political party. It has been forged with blood. In every Awami
League, the freedom movement, you mean?
Not just that. In over the last 54 years, the number of sacrifices that Awami Leaguers have made. You go to any district of Bangladesh, you will find almost each and every Awami League family has had at least someone dying for the party. So our former General Secretary Syed Ashraf, he said this thing that Awami League is not just a party, it's a collection of feelings of the lost ones, of the sacrifices that were made. So for example, in my family, when I was 4, I had seen my mother blown away in a bomb explosion, and I survived by a couple of seconds. Okay. It's just my family. And, there are hundreds of us like this. And this is Awami League's strength. We have had people in our families who died for the cause. It's a cause-driven call. My father had spent years in jail without trial. He was never convicted, and he was an elected mayor of Chittagong, the city I come from, for 16 years, and yet he had spent most of his lifespan, a substantial part of his lifespan, in jail, in exile, right? So these families who were affected because of Awami League's politics, they will never give up. They will never give up on Awami League.
So you mentioned the ICT a couple of moments back. Would want to ask you, Sheikh Hasina ji, through her law firm, has been writing to ICT for a long time. Couple of letters have been shot off to the ICT, but they have not taken cognizance of any of them, and in fact, they have denied receiving it in the very first place, despite they have been electronically dispatched.
Yes.
So one of them was about her trial being conducted in flagrant violation of international law. How do you view in this scenario? Do you think justice will ever prevail? And do you think that the Awami League leaders who have been targeted by the alleged unfair trial or by the ICT, do you see that they'll ever give justice?
Oh, absolutely. The trial that we've seen at the so-called International Crimes Tribunal, at every step we've seen violation of the procedures, the existing procedures of the tribunal. The constitution of the tribunal itself was illegal. It was unconstitutional. The law did not allow anything else but for the crimes and genocide of 1971. But then it was illegally amended by the Yunus regime in absence of the parliament. And whilst it was, I should say, an ad hoc tribunal, the trial just happened like that, and sentences were given. So everyone in the country believed that it wasn't a trial; it was a kangaroo court. It was just to, it was just to prove that they were doing "quote unquote" justice to the victims of their killings and violence. So we have no faith on this so-called tribunal, and yet we have reminded them routinely that she has the right to represent herself through international lawyers. This was in the procedure of the tribunal. The manner in which they had conducted the trial was entirely illegal. It did not even follow the basic criminal justice standard of the country, existing procedural laws. So what has happened at the tribunal and continues to happen has no standing before the public and also to law. Of course, there is an upper forum, which is the Supreme Court, the appellate division.
But there also the justices were possibly the Yunus appointees.
Not just Yunus appointees. I mean, we've seen something that was unprecedented in the history of the world, I should say. Even during the French Revolution, the courts were not forced to resign, right? The entire appellate division, the appeal court, the Supreme Court were forced to resign through a mob, and these justices were appointed. I don't want to be critical of them yet because they have not heard an appeal yet. Although we are not represented, so we can't appeal to this Supreme Court. But there will come a time when we believe that the institutional integrity of the Supreme Court will be upheld, and they will exercise their constitutional power and see what has happened in the tribunal and scrap it. So it's not just that we have hope; we know that is the legal certainty. So we are not that concerned about whatever verdict has been given at the tribunal. It is still continuing the legal trials and handing out death penalties for police personnel who were there only to defend themselves against a group of extremists who were firing at them. So police were simply defending themselves using whatever ammunition they had. So they are giving, they are trying military personnel for simply taking government instruction and acting accordingly. Being part of a disciplined force, they had to act according to the government instruction. They are a professional force, right? And they are trying 15 army officers. So this tribunal has been set up to destroy the integrity and the strength of our three very important institutions: the army, the police, and the civil service. There are more than 15 senior secretaries who are in jail now.
Right.
So it's not just that politicians are in jail.
Bureaucrats are also.
Army officers who served in civilian forces on deputation from the army, they go and serve and then they come back to their regular forces. Police officers and politicians and business people, hundreds of industrialists today are still carrying extortion charges, murder charges on their head. So how are they going to continue their business and profession? There are hundreds of cases which were filed, fake cases filed against them, and not a single case has been withdrawn yet. They're not acting out yet. They're not going out there to arrest them, but as a businessman who had nothing to do in politics, maybe they've donated or allied themselves or were well-wishers, right? Doesn't mean that they were active in political decision making. And yet, many of them are carrying on their head hundreds of cases, extortion to murder. Now, politicians are fine in that kind of liability being on their head, but the business people aren't. They want legal certainty that the case is not on my name, and I now have the full flexibility, right, and freedom to continue my profession or business.
Do you see under the BNP regime, such cases, a possibility of such cases being withdrawn? Because so far we haven't seen any of it.
Yes, they were talking about forming a committee and going through the list of cases. But what they have done is basically they have exempted themselves from cases from the past. But at the same committee could have at least given some relief to the business people or the professionals who had nothing to do with political parties, or even the bureaucrats, the army officials. But they have not done so, because they want to approach government as rulers, not government through consensus, through mandate of people. So if you start the day with this ruling mentality, you're bound to fail in your governance.
So a major question arises about the handling of the bureaucracy and the governance structure under the Yunus regime. Now we've seen that hundreds of children have died because of a disease called measles, which in India is a very eradicable disease in this country. But there have been studies by bodies who have now said that under the Yunus regime, the focus of the regime was so digressed from the regular governance that it did not even carry out immunization programs. Now, do you think that the current problems that the BNP government in his honeymoon period is facing are actually a result of the Yunus regime's misgovernance?
See, the Yunus wanted to privatize the immunization program for the benefit of his NGOs. So during his tenure, you'd see that his Grameen NGO and other NGOs who were aligned with him had
proliferated.
And so had many government contracts given out to them. So he did not believe in government being active and serving the people. He wanted to get his NGO cronies to do the job of the government. So the alternative to government, that is his philosophy, because of course he is an agent of other forces. So they don't believe in the government. They want to have their own ecosystem, which is why he didn't proceed with the immunization program, which is a very successful program and cited across the world as being one of the best example of immunization program. Our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina at the time received an international award from the Global Alliance on Vaccine and Immunization, Gavi. She was called a vaccine hero. So in a very short period of time, she was able to vaccinate millions of children in the country. This government is continuing the legacy of those failures and yet not doing anything to rectify those decisions. We've heard only recently that they are going back to the policy decisions taken by Sheikh Hasina government, that they should be doing it through government, through UNICEF, through those who are skilled in this. So Yunus's plan was different, is to privatize the entire government to the extent that privatize meaning not just like privatizing the government entities, but every action, service or function of government to be delegated to these unaccountable, foreign funded, aid dependent NGOs. So this was his plot, but we hope that this government will understand, and yet we see they're continuing with the legacy of Yunus's foreign minister, the so-called National Security Advisor, Mr. Khalil, is now the foreign minister.
And now the UNGA president.
Yes. So to what extent will they continue with all these kinds of disastrous decisions? Time will tell.
Sir, foreign funding has been a major subject of debate across, political commentators have been talking about it. Whether a regime change in Bangladesh per se was the handwork of a foreign hand. The Bangladesh Human Rights Watch has said that, in fact, the funding from the US remained flat through the 2000s, accelerated from 2018 onwards, reached an all-time peak of USD 572, 530, 819, in 2024, and declined sharply through 2025 when Yunus was in power. And of course, in 2026, which is yet to complete even the sixth month. So, do you think that, the refusal to bend to the US demands of course, there are mentions about the St. Martin Island that also have been discussed, was actually the result of the US sort of hand behind the regime change in Bangladesh?
See, it's irrelevant what I believe or feel. Let's go into the facts. United States the then newly elected President Donald Trump himself, out there in public, had said in one financial year alone, one entity which had two people working in that had received 20 million US dollar. So it's not what I am claiming or my party is saying or who's saying what. It's the President of the United States, as a result of which he shut down the operation of USAID. He felt that this kind of wastage of fund of US taxpayers is not justified. At that time, that's what he felt, and he shut down a lot of the operations of USAID. And it's just one entity we're talking about. There's so many entities who had received not just USAID funding or the US government funding, but also fundings from those who had claimed in the past that they were instrumental in regime changes. For example, the Soros Foundation,
Right.
the Open Society Foundation, led by George Soros' son. He had met a lot of these activists in public, had committed funds to them, and whether he transferred them or not, we don't know, but we have evidence that the money had flown into their accounts. Yunus Center was involved. And then there were media outlets who were financed by National Democratic Endowment, NDE endowment, by the US government, which is called, one of them is called the Netra News, who were incessantly publishing
Right.
news stories against us. There's nothing wrong in publishing news stories about a government. But when the whole purpose of your existence is to undermine a government, then something is wrong, right? It is not neutral. From the very beginning, it is biased. That individual, the one who had founded the organization, the Netra News. So these actors were all at play against a political force which was rooted in the country and had strong support across the country. It took them 15 years to succeed, right? Billions were spent to uproot us, to oust us. Billions, not just these millions. If you look at the time span, the 15 years, they were investing in different NGOs, different organizations, but they could not succeed. Finally, they did. But look at what has happened now. It hasn't even taken a full government tenure of 5 years. We are back.
Right.
We are back because we enjoy the support of the average common citizens of Bangladesh. The name itself suggests that, Awam. So we represent the Awam. You cannot run sustainable government, economy, society by excluding the Awam. Right? They've tried it with Afghanistan. Ashraf Ghani had to flee in a helicopter with cash, with a bag full of dollars. Our prime minister were taken by the military from the country for her safety. She did not flee the country. The Air Force team had joined together, and with the C-130, she was taken with full honor. Right? The regimes which had no root, no strength, installed in Afghanistan and other places, had to run from their country. Look at Vietnam, right? These kind of regime changes are never sustainable. And so I must say that the Westerners or whoever behind this, they must understand the ground reality. Regime changes do not lead to a betterment of the people's condition.
So here I would really want to ask you that there was a palpable sense of anger within the youth as well. And there
Absolutely,
were
yes.
some policies that the youth were apprehensive about and not comfortable with. And do you think that any of that could have been reversed at the hindsight, that possibly if that could have been controlled, such a situation could not have cropped up in the first place?
The situation, so we were continuously telling them that we are going to meet your demand, but there is a case pending. Before we were able to do anything, they went on a rampage. So killings had started so early in this process, in this protest movement, that the US embassy had condoned death of several citizens, although there was no news or any information on casualties at the time, at the very beginning. So they had said that we are sad because of the loss of life of 6 students or whoever. At the time, the killings had not even started. So they were so prompt in their reactions. And then thereafter, of course, the number of fatalities had increased. So in a way, you can say that could we have tamed the situation a lot earlier? I believe that we had the chance. Whether we could have completely eradicated the threat of regime change, I'm not so confident, because so much was invested. If it wasn't this, there could have been another. So it was a very well-designed plan, and as claimed by Yunus himself, he called it a meticulous design. It wasn't just a youth-led movement. Youth were instrumental. Youth were used. They want job like every other young people on the planet, right? And they were united. And when they were united, protesting, if unknown sources started to kill them, of course the anger will be directed towards the sitting government, and that's what had happened.
Right. So, coming to this, why is Bangladesh so strategic for the US to see so much of investment in the first place? Do you think that the strategic location of Bangladesh, it was one of the fastest growing economies of South Asia, in fact, once even surpassing India. Today, we see the situation is being, driven to almost Afghanistan.
Yes.
So it's unfortunate to see such a well-established economy that was doing so well, for so many years, now being, pushed back so many years back. Why was Bangladesh so strategic for US, if at all these allegations of funding is so grave?
I don't want to name any country to answer your question, but you have to understand that certain countries or certain forces in global politics thrive on conflict. And it is the conflict economy that is the backbone of their industrial sector, right? Weapons, ammunition.
The arms industry.
Arms industry, right? I mean, if you look at certain countries, they don't produce anything anymore. Everything else is produced by China, and all they do is just warplanes and missiles and so on and so forth.
Rest can be imported.
Yeah, rest can be imported. So without conflict, certain countries' economy will not run. Without chaos, without COVID-like mass chaos, they won't survive. They won't continue their hegemony.
Right.
Okay? So, and Bangladesh's case is unique because you see, certain countries feel that China's rise in global economy is almost miscalculated by them, because they felt that economically strong China would lead to Western style of democracy and society in that country, and that did not happen. So the next point of focus is India, right? India is a major geopolitical player, right? The Indian diaspora in the West is very strong. Indian diaspora and Indian skilled professionals control the ICT infrastructure of the West, the financial services, the medical services. So India is the next emerging power in terms of human resource. China was a manufacturing hub, right? Not human resource for the West. But if you look at the diaspora of India abroad, for some countries, India is the next, I shouldn't use the word threat, but next place to contain, right? So what's the best way to keep India busy? Is by having two difficult neighbors on two different fronts. And Bangladesh is not just a neighbor to India. Bangladesh's geolocation is inside India.
Right. It's surrounded. It's surrounding Bangladesh from three sides.
No. On all four sides. We only have about 30 to 40 kilometer border with Myanmar. Land, sea, air, everything is, we are in between India. We have a small corridor to Myanmar only. We don't have a full-on large border with Myanmar. So maybe 100 kilometers or something like that. So I'm on that side, so I know. So India has the biggest land border with Bangladesh. So if you can create enough trouble, chaos in Bangladesh, it has a ripple effect to India, right? India cannot have two difficult neighbors, Pakistan with nuclear weapon and terrorism being exported to India and other places. And if you can successfully create another Pakistan in this side of the world, it will keep India busy, not focused on development, on human resource, on skill development, on their geopolitical stand across
But the energy is focused somewhere else.
on just protecting itself.
One major point I would like to really ask you here, which is an important question to be asked: do you expect a person like Tariq Rahman, who is now heading the government, to realize these realities that India is such a strategic, such an important partner, to not really mess up its relations too much with? Or and do you expect him to, possibly not immediately, because he's also under a lot of pressure from the extremists which have been let loose by the Yunus regime?
Yeah.
Do you expect him to at one point of time start reining in these elements?
You see, there are two considerations here. One is whether he has a plan. If his plan is not to have a plan, because that's the first statement he made when he came to Bangladesh, he said, I have a plan, right? Now, your plan can be not having a plan. You can just be a reactive leader. Wherever there is a bit of crisis, you'll just react to it and try to minimize the impact and just continue as is. But if you really have a plan to sustainably continue your tenure in the government, you have to have good relationship with a country which surrounds you.
Yeah.
From water to food to fuel, from raw materials to everything that we export. We are, I don't say the word, I don't use the word reliant, but we have a mutually beneficial relationship with India, right? For our food security to our export.
We've seen that in the energy crisis.
Yes. So we cannot export our number one product, which is the ready-made garments product, without cotton from India, without the raw materials and so on. Of course, also China, right? China is also a major player. So as a leader, as the person leading the prime ministerial position of the country, you have to have that realization. But if you just think that, I'm only here for a short period of time and government might collapse anytime, I'm insecure, an insecure leader takes insecure decisions, not confident decisions, right? So I hope at least personally, that the confidence will come. You've got to understand, the man lived in the UK for 17 years.
17 years.
As a third-class citizen of a first-class country, right? That insecurity is kind of inbuilt in him. For him to, and from being a refugee in the UK, in a country which looks down on Bangladeshis, right? They have a very colonial, the administration has an attitude problem with all South Asians, former colonies. That's how they saw us. And living as a third-class citizen of a first-class country, suddenly becoming the prime minister of a nation, country, will take time.
But do you think that those years have affected a change in his mind? Because there was a point of time when under Khaleda Zia as the Prime Minister, it was Mr. Tariq Rahman who used to conduct pro-Pakistan activities out of Bangladesh.
I can only have hope for a better change in his mind. It's not just pro-Pakistan activity during that time. It was also involvement in, or at least patronizing, smuggling of weapons to India, to the rebels of
Northeast insurgents.
And patronizing terrorists to attack Sheikh Hasina and her entire party, to wipe it off entirely on the 21st of August 2004. They had attacked Sheikh Hasina and the whole party machinery, and they wanted to eradicate, erase it, just
forever.
Forever. So from that kind of a mindset, whether that man has gone through some kind of enlightenment, I can't comment on that. And unlikely, you see, when you live, again, I say this, as an insecure, sheltered person in a first-class country, as a third-class citizen, it will take some time for you to embrace statesmanship.
Right.
It takes time.
The foreign policy of Bangladesh government. We've seen the visit of the Turkish foreign minister recently. There is a kind of an axis that is developing between Bangladesh, Turkey, Pakistan. How do you see these developments, and do you think they're positive for Bangladesh?
How can a former intelligence head, now heading Turkish foreign ministry, with close tie with extremists in Syria and other parts of the world, how can his visit bring anything good for the country? I don't know. It is certainly not good for the country. It is literally a security threat for us. The things that they were talking about, Turkey is not in a position to invest in Bangladesh. Turkey has a policy to bring in foreign currency into the country and sell their passport. It's a country which is in acute shortage of foreign currency. You give $400,000 worth of money in Turkey, you can buy your passport there, right? So they have a recognized investment scheme because they're in such crisis that they're selling their passport. So when you have a country like that, they are not coming to you for investment. They are coming for their intelligence presence. They work closely with Pakistan's ISI. They have presence in different countries. They want to, because they have failed domestically. Turkey as a nation is a very secular nation. Right. Erdogan wants to convert the country into a hyper-religious, extremist Islamic country, which he's failing. And in order to deflect that, there is an attempt by them to export their ideology abroad, and which is what they're doing. So Turkey is a country, if it was from even Indonesia, I'd say, who are mineral resource rich and want to have some kind of a bilateral partnership with Bangladesh for their fuel, the mineral resources to be exported. That could also be an investment into the country's energy sector. That is not happening. Even if it was Myanmar, which is another very mineral resource rich country, right. Even if they were coming in to invest by way of selling whatever they have, fuel, gas, this, that, it could have been seen minimally positive. Turkey has no connection geographically, investment wise, nothing. So their only objective is this utopia, the Ottoman utopian dream that Erdogan has, and that's what is being sold by their administration in Bangladesh. And they have invested in certain extreme Salafist groups who are now reminiscing about the so-called Ottomans and all these Turkish drama serials, although they're Spanish made, but they claim that this is their history. And all these fictions and delusions. Unfortunately, people are moved by fictions and delusions far more than reality. So we have our job as political parties to bring them back to reality and sway them away from this kind of delusions, which we are quite successful. Despite having the ban, we are successfully bringing the youth back to reality. That this is what Sheikh Hasina gave you. Once upon a time, your passport had a value. You were able to go abroad and study. Right now, a generation is being termed as extremists or hyper-religious by Westerners. The ones who had assisted or misguided you to oust an elected civil liberal government now will be refusing your entry into their country because now you'll be termed as extremists. So they have this realization, and within 6 months their delusion is gone, some of them. It wasn't the youth of the whole nation who were against us. A few in urban areas, especially the more cosmopolitan urban Gen Z, we feel that were misled by certain quarters. They have the realization now.
This is a burning question. We are seeing very difficult developments on the border of India and Bangladesh.
Right.
Now, this is a situation that was not visible at all under Sheikh Hasina, because Sheikh Hasina government was very cordial with, had a very cordial relationship with India, and frankly, the need did not arise to address the concerns of illegal immigration, because the government to government contact was so
Communication
good.
yes.
Now, after Yunus came to power, there was a sort of resurgence of this unease within India against the illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. Now, unfortunately, there have been data that has been shared by the Ministry of External Affairs. They say that 2,860 requests for verification of these illegal migrants are pending with Bangladesh for the past, and some as old as 5 years. Now, suddenly, there has been a government change in West Bengal that shares borders with Bangladesh, and we are seeing that the government is pushing back the illegal migrants back to Bangladesh. The BGP, BSF are fighting, literally fighting on the borders. We are seeing several videos. How do you see this situation panning out? Because the Indian government has made its stand very clear. It is not going to accept illegal migrants residing in India at this scale, and they are going to be pushing back these migrants. BJP is not accepting them. Several of them are forced to live on the no man's land area. It is a humanitarian issue as well. But how do you see this developing between India and Bangladesh? Do you see that this situation getting more difficult in the next few months or years?
You see, the DG of BGP, the person who is leading BGP right now, border guards of Bangladesh, he, despite being a professional military official who were given the charge of leading the BGP during our government, whilst he was in government, he was going on and on about these terrorists who are going on rampaging across the country and targeting hospitals and non-government establishments and thanas, the police stations and so on. Immediately after the fall of the government, the same individual has gone out there and saying, I have not been listening to the government instructions, and I had been the ones who were, I had instructed the BGP not to act, right? When you have that kind of a leader leading a paramilitary force, what do you expect in terms of its behavior? Very dubious, hypocritical, and almost not just unprofessional, someone who is violating his military code of conduct. And that man has instructed his force to be inhuman, to treat the citizens of our own country, our Bangladeshis, to treat them inhumanly. That kind of behavior is expected from the BGP head, because we've seen his behavior in the recent past. That man should be charged at some point. His approach should be that if a citizen of Bangladesh have somehow ended up in India or wherever, whichever country they have gone to, for their livelihood, people don't always find the legal road. People are poor in some places, and marginal people move, and that's the reality all over. And if someone wants to come back to their own country, your job is to facilitate it.
Yeah.
Right? So this overtly aggressive attitude that this BGP DG is showing now goes at the heart of his own belief system, his background, his ideological conviction. So I want to feel confident that this man is not the person calling the shots at the Home Ministry level in Bangladesh. He's not.
Of course, the decision is going to be the political decision at the end of the day.
Not necessarily, because sometimes when you have this kind of people leading paramilitary forces, given that the government is very new and fresh and still not very strong, these individuals with extreme views and anti-Indian mindset can actually have more operational level policy impact than the politicians themselves.
But don't you think that, given the political masters are now changed, there is a political force now in place. Do you expect that in the coming few months there can be a reining in of these kind of elements, or do you think that
There must be.
this is not possible under the BNP regime at all?
Well, what is possible, time will only say. We are still in the very early phase of this government, but elements like these elements, the BGB head or whoever is coming to Bangladesh, this kind of extreme elements has to be managed. Otherwise, it will lead to worsening bilateral relationship between Bangladesh and India, which won't be good for either of the countries, and especially for us, because we are to lose a lot more than India. So there can be good collaboration between both the forces. Mr. Ashraf, the Major General, the head of the BGP, has to stop his anti-Indian rhetorics within his officers, and he has to stop instructing his field officers from treating our own citizens like illegals in our own country. So instead of assisting our citizens who want to return from wherever they are coming back, he's just shooting at them in some instances. And this is not the behavior that we expect from our paramilitary force, which is dependent on our government's, our people's tax contribution. So humane attitude towards own citizens is expected. If they are not our citizens, which can be confirmed through verification, you can let them go wherever they want to go. But the fact that they have claimed that they are our citizens, there is pending request that, so at the Home Ministry level for verification. So on the balance of probability, they are our citizens, right? So on the balance of probability, and if there is any slightest hint that someone is your citizen, you have to first give them shelter and support. If it is proven otherwise, then you can take legal measure against them for misleading or misrepresenting. But when the claim is that from these individuals that we are citizens of Bangladesh, we are marginal people, we are poor people, we have done something wrong, which is not wrong in the eye of Bangladesh government. They have not violated a law of Bangladesh government by going abroad to seek livelihood wherever they have. So they have not committed a crime in our country. So it is our responsibility to at least temporarily shelter them, house them, help them, and do whatever is necessary after verification. But we are failing on that. And when our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was leading the country, we had sheltered 1.2 million Rohingya refugees in the country.
Right. That's what.
If we can give shelter to 1.2 million Rohingya refugees
Who came from
Myanmar, without any documents, and they still claim to be Myanmarese citizens, not our citizens, we have given them, we were humane in our dealings with them. So to our own citizens, we are saying you cannot come.
So clearly, Mohibul Hassan Chaudhry, the former education minister of Bangladesh, categorically stating that even if there is a probability of these illegal immigrants being Bangladeshi nationals, they should be accepted, provided food and shelter. Like he rightly points out, if Bangladesh can do this for Rohingyas from Myanmar, then why not for people who may be, in fact, Bangladeshi nationals? We'll keep bringing you more such interviews, personalities, and raise issues that really matter to India and India abroad. Stay tuned and keep watching India Abroad.